Hey, man, it's Dukes and Bell. It's Monday after another loss. We are talking to you guys today at 2 o'clock, and we do have a lot to talk about. The college football world has been shaken upside down. The Dogs had a great weekend. Tech, not so much. We know more about Trey Young. We will talk about that, and we'll get to some of the things here in our behind-the-scenes show that maybe we don't get a chance to talk about on the show. Nevertheless, thank you guys for being here. Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, however you're accessing this. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Day, our executive producer, Big O, is out today, so he's not on this with us today. And, of course, Mike and I. Mike,
where you want to start?
Well, look, it's funny, but it's not, right? I mean, it's funny and it's laughable because Falcon fans know if you've watched this team for the last decade, hell, if you watch them your entire life, this is how this plays out. You have a chance to maybe tie the game. You have a chance to maybe even take this thing to overtime and maybe win it.
Right.
But something goes wrong. And I think a lot of Falcon fans yesterday, I know I just had to laugh out loud. Like I was frustrated and mad, but at the same time, I was like, this is our lot in life. This is how I feel about where we are right now with this football team. But I will say this. And then, Mike, I know you got a lot on your mind on this game. All of this changes if we can get the right execution, coaching, learning how to finish games. And I know it's so frustrating, but all these teams we've talked about, Mike, that have not had success consistently, and that's where the Falcons are right now. We're a franchise that hasn't been in the playoffs. Looks like now going on 8 years if we don't get there this year. But I know it feels like we're just in this rut. We're cursed. It's never going to change. And all I would say is that it can. I just don't know if we have the necessary things in place to allow that to happen. And by the way, and I'll say this and then I'm done because we got a lot today on the show. I have no confidence that we're going to go on a 5 or 6 game win streak. Zero. Okay? Zero. So if that's not the case, we're not going to the playoffs again. And after yesterday's loss, regardless of what happens in Europe next weekend, I just don't feel like, Dukes, they can win 5 or 6. But that's where I am, man. I mean, as frustrated as I am, Mike, I'm not necessarily like spitting mad as I was last week against the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, I've come to expect that this coaching staff is going to get out-coached, is going to lose their poise. You had a penalty, illegal use of the hands on New England, and we can't get the play in coming off a penalty on the other team. That's Zac Robinson. It's not that hard to find who to blame. And that's just one. Now, we went on to score. So problem was you needed all those timeouts late in the game because obviously Parker Romo couldn't hit an extra point because this gets back, Carl, to things we've talked about. It's just an endless loop of bad decisions because you knew the kicking situation has been a problem for the last 18 months. And you never addressed it in the offseason, so we don't get the Bucs to take that game to overtime. Maybe we win that. We don't get to take this game potentially to overtime because they never get the kicking situation right. The coaching staff, Penix Jr. has to know he cannot throw that ball on the ground. You cannot ground it. That's coaching. He's got to be coached up. We wasted tremendous individual effort. I would say man-to-man that we're as good as New England, if not better. Drake London, Carl, that's a career day. The 3 touchdowns, the circus catches. You and I said last week, when are we going to see Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. have an impact? Boom. Carl says it. Strip sack. And then Pierce scampers off, almost scores on his own. We get a huge momentum shift touchdown before halftime. We get all the things that you need. We've got all the pieces. We don't have coaching. We're one of the most poorly coached teams in the NFL. And it's come back to bite us a number of times, going all the way back to last season.
Day, it's hard to disagree with that when you look at the record and, more importantly, how we've lost. I don't care what you think about Penix or any of these other guys. Everybody needs good coaching. And, they escaped yesterday, and I know this week it's going to be a lot about we almost won and we were close and it was competitive, and that is all true. But we're always on the short end of the stick. And that is the part that I don't care who you are in this situation as far as what your fandom is for the Falcons and how you take in these games. You can't deny that. And I think what Mike is saying, again, they didn't fire Ra yesterday. And hell, I don't know if they'll fire him if we lose next Sunday. To be honest with you, the way this is going, I don't know if that gets us to where we want to be. But I do think when we talk about this team, Mike, it's hard for you not to say this is a poorly coached football team when it matters. We're not talking about the basics. When it matters. Day, where are you at on this, man?
I mean, there's so many things, like you guys say. I mean, and look, people will instantly want to maybe try to jump on, Parker Romo for missing the extra point, which rightfully so. I get it. But if we're honest with ourselves, this game, from the beginning to end, just had so many different variables that played a role. Granted, the defense, I love our defense. I think they came in and stood up very well in the second half. But if we're honest, in that first half, the effort that they needed to have wasn't there. Those 2 long drives by the Patriots, they just could not get off the field. I think one was a 12-play drive, and then the other was a 10-play drive. And in those 2 drives in particular, it was like 4 third-down conversions that the Patriots had. And so the effort to just get off the field and in those drives from our defense, it's, that wasn't there in the first half. And then you just go on to the mistakes that we had, like Mike touched on in the second half with the intentional grounding. I mean, it was just so much. And then just the icing on the cake was the Parker Romo. I mean, it was such a Falcon thing for him to miss the extra point to tie the game. Goodness. Jeez.
Yeah.
But Carl, you said it. Yeah. Why we've now not made the playoffs in 8 seasons? And this is going to be our 8th season. Newsflash, kids, we're not making the playoffs. I mean, this team has tremendous talent, individual talent. I think for all the things I complained about with the front office, they've drafted some really nice pieces. I thought our offensive line, Carl, this year the depth just isn't there. We lost Lindstrom, we lost Bergeron, and I've always given credit to having good trenches, but this year it's been a mixed bag. Still, we had enough to tie it. We had enough to tie this game on the road.
Yeah, you still had a chance. I mean, to be quite honest, and we're going to break this down for you today on the show, starting at 2. We got the ball back with 3 minutes to play and had a shot. There are no excuses. And you screwed yourself on the most important drive of the day by a dumb penalty that made it 4th and 20. I had no problems with punting it because, again, you had to play the odds.
Yeah, same.
And 4th and 20, you're not going to convert that, okay? More times than not, 9 times out of 10. So you had to punt it. But we screwed ourselves with the chance to win. And so, look, I love what Drake did yesterday. We've talked about this. If you've listened to our show, especially through the offseason, I told you guys Drake was a killer. He is a killer. We make the fun. We play that sound, from Dr. Dre and Natural Born Killers, and we had fun with it. But you saw it yesterday. All those throws from Michael Penix were not perfect. Drake went up and got some 50-50 balls, and he just said, screw it. I'm going to go make a play. That's the kind of stuff I talk about when these receivers say, I'm not getting the ball thrown to me, or, they don't throw it to me enough. Dude, when you get thrown the ball, I'm going to make a play. I don't give a damn where the ball is. That's the attitude Drake has. But after the game, he also said, I don't care, man. We lost. I don't care about these individual things that I did today. And that, to me, Mike, just tells you everything you need to know. He's not a diva in the sense that, I had a 150-yard day and 3 touchdowns or whatever it was. He wasn't even willing to talk about that. So you're right. We've got great, but we can't put it all together. And guys, special teams hurt us again yesterday, Mike. Special teams hurt us again. Are they going to do something about this?
No. I mean, look, you fired Ike Hilliard, and I don't want to see guys getting fired, but I'm like, it's a zero-sum game. Either you get the job done or you don't. And Marquice Williams' group has been one of the worst in the NFL. We already talked about the Romo situation. That's systemic because that goes back. That's kind of above the coaching staff. That's more Fontenot because they didn't address that in the offseason. So now we're going to Europe and all that entails. The travel, all the stuff that gets you out of your rhythm. The Colts, and Carl, you said this. I don't want the Colts to lose. Colts lose to the Steelers. Daniel Jones, this is like sort of I think Oren said yesterday in our group text, kind of like the pumpkin moment where, whoops, he goes back to being, Daniel Jones. So they're going to be ready to run the football with Jonathan Taylor on us and get back to where they were as one of the best teams in the AFC after getting embarrassed in Pittsburgh. It just, like I said, this team, it's so many things you just want to scream at the television about because you've got the talent. This team, I think, is as talented as anybody in the NFC. And I think Michael Penix Jr., I think his learning curve is maybe a little bit steeper now, Carl, than we anticipated. If you didn't watch the game, you just looked at the box score. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He had to throw it too many times. If he's got to throw it more than 30 times, we lose. They quit on the run early, And then later on, they mixed the run in on the scoring drive, Carl, that would have tied it. So Zac Robinson, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just, you need some outside help. Raheem Morris, he can be as smug as he wants. We need some outside help. If this team's ever got a shot at turning it around, they need a new set of eyeballs on some of these problems.
A couple other things, guys. We got a big show today. Make sure you're there starting at 2, 92.9 The Game. It's Dukes and Bell, and we appreciate you being here as well. We'd love to read, and we will read some of your comments. I know people are hitting us up as we speak with where you're at right now. And it looks dire. Let's be honest. I mean, like, you lose overseas, we're checked out before Thanksgiving. Like, and I'm just being real with you. I'm not talking about Mike and I. I'm saying Falcon fans as a whole are probably going to say, okay, now it's really hit me. Right now, it feels that way, but guess what? There's still a little glimmer of hope. You go win overseas, you beat the Colts, that's okay. What are you going to do when you come back? We felt like the schedules might, ease up. It doesn't really ease up. And to Mike's point about getting help, I'm going to give you guys a great example about what happened yesterday in the NFL and our offense compared to theirs. But let's talk about the Dogs real quick, Mike, because we'll get into this today. Man, that Kirby Smart, say what you want. This is why he's the best in the business, man. His team does not quit. And I thought Florida might pull this thing out Saturday. And then Chauncey goes on his run. And what about the play? Look, it cost me a lot of money. I'm not going to lie to you. But what about the play to Stetson, not Stetson Bennett, but to Gunnar Stockton?
Right.
That he takes the knee instead of going in and scoring the touchdown. And for those who don't remember, he did this exact same thing against Auburn, except he scored, which gave them a chance to not only touch the ball, maybe score and get an onside kick. This time, I'm not even going to give you a chance to touch the ball, Florida. I'm going to take the knee. Right. It cost me a lot of money. But anyways, hell of a win for the Dogs.
Now, again, in the old days, you would just simply score and make it a 2-possession game. But now, again, coach would always say, take a knee. And now the players do take a knee. And as you said, that's part of it. I'll tell the story later today on Dukes and Bell 2 to 6. I was at a Georgia-Florida viewing party with about 50 Dog fans that all bet the game, Carl, that were losing their minds. I thought it was going to be close. And I thought that Florida would, certainly have a plan after having that extra week to prepare. Interim coach, you brought up the phrase galvanizing effort, and they brought one. And even not having their best wide receivers out there, Florida, you knew in this rivalry game they were going to be there. But what a crazy ending. And Georgia Tech, we'll talk about that as well today, knew that Carter Finley, Carl, we've said it. It's a place where sometimes ACC playoff hopes go to die. Florida State struggled there back in the day. But that was just a game where you just got to tip your cap to NC State. Athletic quarterback and Georgia Tech's defense really exposed on Saturday night.
No doubt. Again, Haynes King doing everything he can, but this was a letdown. There's no doubt about it. This was a letdown. It doesn't mean that Georgia Tech is out of the playoff picture.
No.
Matter of fact, College Football Playoff Committee puts out their first rankings tomorrow night. So I'm very curious to see. We'll be talking about it on the show, what that looks like. But Georgia Tech still has everything in front of them. I know this was a disappointing loss. They could still win out. That includes beating Georgia. I'm not going to put that past them. And be in the College Football Playoff, which is the ultimate goal. My question becomes, if they lose to Georgia and a 2-loss Georgia Tech team doesn't win the ACC championship, that becomes the issue, right?
Right. The strength of schedule is going to come into play.
Yeah. By the way, we also found out before we get out of here, guys, over the weekend, Trae Young is going to be out 4 weeks. We talked to Steve Koonin on Friday. Steve said he felt uncomfortable. This is the Hawks CEO who joins our show every week, about answering that question in light of the gambling stuff that had happened recently. So we respect that. But it came out, it was official from the team, Trae 4 weeks, and then he'll be reevaluated. They lost last night to the Cavs. Mike, are they going to be able to keep their head afloat here before Trae gets back, or is this going to be a below 500 team over the next 4 weeks?
Well, it's going to be sort of pointless point guard. You got a backup that can play some point, but I mean, for the most part, you're going to miss it. Like everyone always says, if you don't like Trae, and there's always been this camp in Atlanta that never bought in, so they'll be like, we can win. You're not going to win without Trae. I think you've got a team which is still coming together, even with Trae. They're not consistently playing defense. The 3-point shot's been hit or miss. But I mean, you got to keep your head above water. If you can give me 500 ball without Trae, it's with the new pieces. I mean, that means you're leaning into Porzingis a little bit. Jalen Johnson is capable of taking some of these games over, but it's tough without having his running mate to kind of facilitate it.
Dede?
Yeah, no, I mean, to your point about playing 500 ball, that's what they've done so far because they picked up the win. I believe it was Friday night, but then last night, just tough night for them against the Cavs. I mean, and perimeter. I mean, they just couldn't stop the Cavs 3-point shooting last night, it seemed. But they kept fighting. I mean, the fight is there. They showed that they can be in these games without Trey. But to you guys' point, who else can kind of step up? Alongside Jalen, and really help this team kind of or carry this team until we do see the return of Trae Young.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting the next 4 weeks, but good news is he's not out for the season. They will get him back, and hopefully they can just, again, stay 500. We'll get into that today as well a little bit, but it is all about the Falcons and where this team is and where do they go. After another this was a heartbreaking loss.
Oh, totally.
Look, the loss against the Dolphins, that was an ass-kicking. Like, you didn't expect it to happen, and then, the way it went down. This was heartbreaking because there were 2 times this weekend I screamed, no! One was Gunner taking the knee, and then the other was the extra point attempt. No! And my wife's looking at me like, again? Yes, again. Very disappointing this weekend.
I will say this. We'll get into it later, but I had another 3-0 weekend. So, Carl, if you had told me a Kennesaw State, Ohio State, Seattle parlay, and it took me 2 bookies to finally find someone to take that action, would pay off. But no, we'll get into it because there were some blowouts in college. Looks like Tennessee's playoff run, any chance of it is kind of kaput. We got a lot to cover, but focus in your calls today, as you said, Carl, on the Falcons.
All right, guys, we'll see you at 2 o'clock. Be there. Dukes and Bill, thanks for hanging out with us here on the Behind the Scenes show.